YouTube and Facebook Live every single day. Willy Donick joins us from, I can't keep track of where you are these days, Willy. Where are you today?
LA Live.
LA.
Right next
La
to
La Land,
Crypto.com arena. Yep. We arrived last night. So from Sin City to LA. So
you
we
see
moving
LeBron?
along.
You see LeBron?
I haven't yet, but I haven't left the hotel yet. I'm sure LeBron and I will cross paths here in the next
I'm sure.
couple of days. You never know.
Yeah. Well, if you see him, just tell him DJ said hello, all right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
He'll
do
know
that.
who
I'll
it
do
is.
that.
Yeah, he knows
He'll
who my
know.
son is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Predators last week had two lackluster performances, embarrassing performances, one performance that really made you kind of question everything after losing to the Dallas Stars 9-2. We learned per Elliot Friedman that Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz canceled the early trip to Vegas. They were going to see U2 in the Sphere, and they said, nope. If you aren't giving us your best, you don't get to go see U2. And it looked like, at least in the first two games of this road trip, Saturday in St. Louis, last night in Vegas, it was the kick in the butt that they needed. You had great goaltending from Kevin Lankinen last night, and you finally got that depth in secondary scoring, that it was the young guys, that it wasn't, a decent bit of the season we've been talking about, okay, yeah, getting scoring from Gus Nyquist and Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg, yes, that's great, but where are the young guys? Where's the production from some of these young guys that are the future of the core of this team? We saw that last night.
Man, I tell you what, Willie, and I brought up Tommy Nowak's name yesterday, and boy, oh boy, is he on a heater, man. He is playing outstanding the last 5 or 6 games. He has, 4 goals in 6 games, somewhere around there. So he's really playing at a level that they're going to need him to play moving forward if this team is going to continue to make that push for the final wild card spot. But, not only him, Cody Glass, Evangelista, guys like that are, picking up their weight. And as long as those guys, and it's not going to be like this every night, but as long as you get some type of contribution from these guys, I think that's a good thing for the Predators.
Yeah, if you think about last year, after they made the moves at the deadline that they did and traded the veteran players, it was really those three were as instrumental as anybody, Evangelista, Novak, and Glass. And if you look at their seasons individually, they've had some ups and downs. Novak and Evangelista, I would say, have been flashy. They've had big moments, but they haven't had that full groove that I think you're looking for. And we know Cody Glass's story is well told. 2 different injuries early in the season, and then really I would say a loss of confidence, a long stretch where he was being scratched regularly. But now if you take a look, he looks much more like the player that he did last March. And so to me, that's a really good sign. That's essential if you're drawing a map of how you get to that last playoff spot. And look, Arizona is probably now out of it. They've hit a wall and they've collapsed. It's 5 teams for 1 spot, and that's a heck of a dogfight right there. But if you're going to try to be that team, those 3 guys I think are going to be very important.
And that's what makes these next few games so key, especially heading into the trade deadline. So, of course, we know that the Predators canceled the U2 concert, the early trip to Vegas. What was the response within the locker room? Ryan O'Reilly joins us now. First and foremost, Ryan, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. It's been fun to watch this team on the road trip. But, of course, we learned that Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette said, hey, we're not going to see U2 in the Sphere. What was the reaction in response from the team after that canceled trip?
Obviously we're disappointed. I thought it was a good time for the team to kind of come together, but no, I think it's we came on the break and didn't perform the way we wanted to, and they wanted to change it, and that's the decision. And it was a good reset for us and to focus. And as you can see, the last 2 games, I thought we played very well. Obviously, I think anytime you can do stuff together as a team is good, but when things are going well, you don't get rewarded, and that's what happened. And we moved on from it. I thought again, last night was a huge win for us. The guys played great. Everyone was involved, and just we got to keep moving on, keep winning these games.
We've kind of seen that from the Predators throughout this season, where maybe you lose a couple and then you win a few and lose a couple and win a few. It's kind of been a bit of a back and forth season, and that's really been kind of the tale of these last 2 weeks. A couple of tough games last week against New Jersey and then Dallas at home, and then 2 great games at St. Louis and, of course, at Vegas last night. What have you seen has been the difference in some of the peaks and valleys of this team the past couple of weeks?
Well, the biggest thing, I think when we came out of the break, there was just kind of, obviously it's a tough schedule. I think we were one of the last teams on break, and we just came out, we were just kind of slow and hesitating. And, the guys, I think, like respect our team in a sense. Everyone, I think, is always working hard. And, when we got into trouble, there was just, that hesitation and not kind of just trusting and going. It was like no one wanted to make mistakes. And these last 2 games, it's the kind of the mentality is, who cares? It's like, let's go, let's trust our game and, just compete and go from there. And you can see, we are much faster. We're the way we, back check, we're smothering teams, and even offensively too, we're quick, we're on pucks, and, that little, I think, shift of mindset, and everyone on that same page of just, not trying to hang around and win the game and just go try to take it from them. You can see how effective it is. It's something that we, have to be consistent with and bring tomorrow night, because it's going to be another tough challenge for us.
Predators forward Ryan O'Reilly is with us. Ryan, how much do you all as players in the locker room keep the trade deadline in mind?
It's something that, I was part of it last year too, and got shipped out, I think around this time. And, it's always on the back of your mind, especially with social media. Everyone kind of has rumors and speculation. It's tough. But, we kind of touched on it. We had a team meeting of just kind of, hey, we all want to be here. We want to win. We want to keep this group together. And let's focus on what we can control. And that's, just showing up and being ready to work and compete for each other.
We'll talk with Nashville Predators, Ryan O'Reilly. Now, Ryan, because we had this discussion after the 9-2 loss, and there are several different avenues you can go down. You can say, hey, listen, let's just flush that tape. Let's not watch it because it's not indicative of who we are as players. Let's flush it. Or we can get in there and we can watch it and we can watch the hard stuff and make some corrections and kind of move on from there. What approach did Coach Bruno take with you guys in regards to that game?
Unfortunately, we did watch it, and it wasn't pretty. I don't think anyone enjoyed that. That was one of the worst games, obviously, of the season, and everything just went wrong. And we looked at it, we saw all the areas we were terrible in, and it was needed. We unfortunately would love to wash it, but no, we looked at it and saw it, and came out and had a really hard practice, and then moved through it that way. But I think it was just it was good for us, and that's something that can't happen again.
Now, you come off 2 back-to-back wins against very good teams, the St. Louis Blues, and obviously last night versus Vegas. How do you approach those 2 games? It's essentially after the break, after the loss, and then approach those 2 games, because you guys have played lights out. I mean, Lankinen was good in the net last night. Saros was good in the net the game before that. What is said amongst the veteran guys, you included, that has put y'all in a position where y'all have beaten 2 really good teams?
I think the thing that we've been stressing is just kind of like little details of our game. I think we come to the break and it's like, okay, hey, we want to get in. We, got to win a bunch of games, and, we can't give up anything. And it's a little more outcome focused. And I think after that loss in these last 2 games, it's from, I think, the veteran guys just, harping on the details. You do the right things. You constantly have the communication of, being responsible for each other, doing the right thing, staying engaged, and just the task at hand. And, when we do that, I think that obviously just helps us, play a lot faster, play cleaner. And we're not, trying to make the playoffs in one game. All that matters is just this next game ahead of us. And, we chip away at that.
We're talking to Ryan O'Reilly of the Nashville Predators, coming off a big win last night in Vegas, 5-3. They take on the L.A. Kings tomorrow night. Ryan, I had a good conversation with Luke Evangelista. He's played really well these last couple of games, and he really commended yourself and the other leaders on the team. He talked about, the guys that got rings, guys who have been through the battles. It's got to feel good to you because that's one of the things I know was kind of presented to you by Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett when you joined the Predators, is to have a good influence on these young guys. And here you are 2/3 into the season. I could really hear it in Luke's voice how much of an impression guys like you have made. Does that make you feel pretty good?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's always nice when young guys like that, they're up and coming players and they respect you and they listen to you. And yeah, I think it's something that's tough to do too. I think growing up, I know myself in the game when you're young, you kind of sometimes you think you got it figured out, but these young guys and Luke especially, they're so respectful. You can tell they're learning. They're doing what they can to be better pros and better players, and it's fun to be around. Because they've got great energy and just really good players too. So it's really fun to be a part of it.
You now join a pretty rare group. You've got a 20-goal season for 4 different teams. There's only 3 other guys in the league that can say that. But you've always shown the ability. Even last year, you got dealt at the trade deadline. You jump in to a Toronto team and made a good contribution there. But you've shown the ability to go into a different situation and make your presence felt and acclimate. What do you think has been unique about this team now that you're well into this first year in Nashville?
There's obviously a lot of things I've been impressed with and reasons why I signed here. I've been impressed when we dial into our skating game and how hard we can be to play against, and kind of coming to the end of the season, thought we were going to be a little bit a little more offensive minded, but you could see though with our structure, when we play fast and have this mindset of playing quick but also returning quick, it's really tough to play against. And some of the best games, in a game like last night, we just frustrated them, and it's so fun to be a part of. And it's tough to do. There's some really good players in this game, but I've been really impressed with our group when we do that the right way. We're right there with these top teams and frustrating them and making it hard on them. And that to me, it's impressive and why I think this team can have success. It's it excites me.
One thing that really jumps out when you guys are on your game, you saw it last night, and I'm just wondering your perspective when you see one of these kind of plays happen. But like Jeremy Lauzon just crushed a couple of guys, and he seems to do it every night. Luke Schen's been really getting involved physically here. I feel like you guys are starting to get a reputation of being one of the harder hitting teams that you look at the stat sheet every night. You guys are up there in that category. What kind of impact do you think that has each night when you guys are doing it right?
Oh yeah, it's something not easy to play against. It's great. I think our back end is our D are so good, and Lauzon and Schenner, they lead the way in that. No one really I think wants to go out there and play against those guys, and that's how you win. I think you have to have that edge, and those guys that we're playing against, they're they're disappointed to have to go against those guys, and yeah, that's exactly what you want. It's impressive, and yeah, part of the reason we can be that mean team and go and frustrate teams is because of that.
One more thing for me, another guy that we were just talking about as you came on is Cody Glass, and he's had a lot of issues. It had to feel great for him last night to score against his former team. It always does, I'm sure, but the confidence boost that I'm sure that gave him, you've been seeing it. The other areas of his game have gotten stronger and stronger these last few weeks. He's such a critical player, but what are you seeing on him, as a guy who plays the same position as you do, where his game could go and how important that could be?
Yeah, he's been playing outstanding. Yeah, I think I feel like the start here just couldn't get a bounce with these injuries, and it's nice to it's tough coming back for him, and you can see now he's kind of really, like you said, kind of getting more confident, trusting his game, because he's obviously a kid that such a good kid, works so hard, but also so smart out there. You see when he reads the play and plays he makes, it's very impressive, and I think it's only going to get better from here as he gets more confidence, and that goal last night was just unbelievable. He, picks the puck out of the air and then blasts it home like that. It was amazing, and it's nice to see him start to get rewarded for it because he works so hard and such a good kid and just a really good hockey player.
Ryan O'Reilly, Predators forward, is with us. Willy mentions Cody Glass. I'll kind of apply the same question to a lot of these young guys, whether it's a Luke Evangelista or Tommy Novak, Cody Glass, of course, like Willy mentioned. How have you seen their game grow? What have you noticed from some of those young guys since Barry Trotz, brought in you along with the rest of this class this past year to bring in serial winners and not just contribute to this team, but also be role models for some of these young guys? What have you seen from them?
Yeah, I think they've been outstanding. I think Novi too is really making some unbelievable plays out there, and another amazing goal last night too. It's just seeing him get some confidence with it is awesome. He's such a smart player and just creator too. The way he holds on the puck, and Evangelista too. Last couple games, the goals, huge timely goals, kind of sparks us. It's good to see, and for me, obviously, veteran guy, it's seeing the stuff away, like the little things that they do that is impressive. The heavy on pucks, the way they're positioning their sticks, and little puck battles. It's cool to see that growth, and that's something that's so important for younger players, is kind of seeing those details and doing them. And you can see how, personally, when I see it, it's fun to watch, to see these guys taking steps. It's awesome.
Last one from me, Ryan. I asked you about, how much do you keep the trade deadline in mind? How much do you keep the playoffs in mind?
But it's not as much as you think. I think, it's always in the back of your mind. Everyone, that's the goal. You get in, and then you have a chance, and you tackle that. But, for us in this playoff hunt right now, you have to stay in the moment. You have to stay in just, the game. This next game is the only thing that matters. And you got to give it your full attention because it's a tough league to win in. And, so it's diving into the task at hand, staying engaged in that. And you just keep marching forward. And I think we'll like the result by the time playoff time comes.
Predators forward Ryan O'Reilly. Ryan, really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Good luck tomorrow against the Kings, and safe travels back to Nashville next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
Appreciate it, you too. Predators forward Ryan O'Reilly. Really appreciate him for stopping by and sharing some insight kind of inside the locker room, since it's really been a big topic of conversation for us. You canceled the concert. Well, how was that reaction going to be within the locker room? We can only see what's the reaction is on the ice, and the reaction has been pretty darn good on the ice. And the reason why I asked him about the trade deadline, about the playoffs, is I think that you would probably be accustomed to hear we're only focused on the next game. But of course they're focused on whatever the ultimate goal is or what the trade deadline is. And we talked about this with UC Saros. Could all the trade talk potentially be getting to his head? Could that be a factor that has contributed to his hot and cold play? I think you could also apply that theory to the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think he's a guy who actually got traded at the trade deadline last year. And he was traded, he was the captain of the Blues, a Stanley Cup champion, a hero there. I saw the greeting he got at Thanksgiving time when they welcomed him back after all of that. So he's been through a lot. He's seen it all, which is why he's such a great influence on these guys. And here's hoping that some of the stuff and the foundation that he's laid with guys like Evangelista and Glass and Novak, the guys we've been talking about, that the best is yet to come even this season. Because I think if you're O'Reilly, you've been through it so many times, you probably don't sit there and think about it every day about the trade deadline. He's probably better equipped to handle that than a guy like maybe Alex Carrier or Tommy Novak, who were in the last years of their contract, right? And that's staring them in the face right now. And they're dealing with that. Their agents calling them, their families are calling them, hey, anything new, anything going on, that kind of thing. So I think you just try to set the example as best you can, try to keep that even keel. There's still so many games left, right? That March 8th is such a big date. in everybody's mind right now. But the reality is there's a lot of games after March 8th, too. So if you're in the playoffs on March 8th, that's just phase one, right? You got to be in the playoffs a month after that.
Yeah, we still have what, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before that date comes up. So I know it seems, close because we talk about it, but it's far enough to where you can truly make a move from where you're at, meaning the Nashville Predators. What are they? The third spot right now in the wild card, that last wild card race.
Yeah,
So,
tied.
Now-
yeah,
tied
now
tied
tied
for
with
it.
the
third.
Blues.
Yeah,
They've played one more game. So
exactly.
they are they're one slot down the ladder in that big log jam of teams.
Exactly, but you still got a good ways to go before that trade deadline. You got enough games in there that you can, prove to Barry that, hey, listen, we don't need to, make any drastic moves per se. We're headed in the right direction, and we don't need to sell off assets that could potentially help us not only now but in the future.
And that is going to be the team's perspective.
Yeah.
But what is our perspective? If we were in that position, because Barry Trotz has a really difficult decision that he's going to have to make. How much of that will be influenced or has been influenced by this road trip so far? We'll get into what Barry Trotz said about that. What we would do right now, if the trade deadline is tomorrow, what we think the best approach would be or should be for the Nashville Predators. And we'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase will catch up with Jonathan Hutton at the bottom of the hour at 11:45. Normally he chats with us on noon on Wednesdays. He'll be at 11:45 today, so just over 20 minutes. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase is brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
All right, let's give you the latest from Loan Pronto. Couple of different ways that they're helping people every day get themselves into a better financial situation. Right now, the mortgage rates are lower, and smart homeowners are acting to put themselves in that better spot. Number one, you could wipe out credit card debt if you've got some credit cards that are growing a little bit, or car loans, or something else that may have a poor interest rate. You can get a better interest rate by taking out Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit. Get yourself cash to pay off those debts, and you'll have a much better mortgage rate going forward. Loan Pronto can get you $50,000 and or more dollars in just a matter of days. So call today, and you can even get that process going even faster. 615-499-5780 is the number. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Also, ask about the latest rates and how they could help you get the cash out refi of just 5.49%. That's a huge drop right now. You can lower those monthly payments, especially if you've got a regular mortgage rate, a primary mortgage rate that's in the 7s or 8s. They can improve that for you. They've got the best rates going. Call Loan Pronto now, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, 5.49%, has 6.39% APR, subject to lender approval.
Foremost, Ryan, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us. It's been fun to watch this team on the road trip. But of course, we learned that Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette said, hey, we're not going to see you two in the Sphere. What was the reaction and response from the team after that canceled trip?
Obviously we're disappointed. I thought it was a good time for the team to kind of come together. But, no, I think it's, we came into the break and didn't perform the way we wanted to, and they wanted to change it, and that's the decision. And it was a good reset for us and to focus. And as you can see, the last two games, I thought we played, very well. Obviously, I think, anytime you can do stuff together as a team is good. But, when, things are going well, you don't get rewarded, and that's what happened. And, we moved on from it. I thought, again, last night was a huge win for us. The guys played great. Everyone was involved, and just we got to keep moving on, keep winning these games.
That was Ryan O'Reilly. Appreciate him for joining us in the last segment. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we're broadcasting live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. So, look, that's Ryan O'Reilly kind of called it how it was. Look, we came out of the break. We didn't play how we wanted to. We didn't play well enough, and you don't get rewarded for that. And I don't know if it was the canceled trip that was the kick in the butt that they needed. I don't know if it's that this team just happens to play better on the roads or seems to play better on the road. I don't know what it's been over these last couple of games, but something has changed, and they've played really, really well the past two nights, both in St. Louis and in Vegas last night. But how much does that influence Barry Trotz's decision at what to do at the trade deadline? Because he said, look, you decide for me. If we can win 2 out of every 3 over this next stretch, then sure, we can look into buying. But you've got to show me. So how much is this road trip going to influence what Barry Trotz's decision is going to be at the deadline? He was on with Jared Stillman yesterday on Stillman & Company and answered that question.
I mean, how much of your deadline decision-making is going to be influenced by the road trip and the results and the standings when you guys come home after the 4 games that are ahead?
Well, I think, depending on I think the results will bear a lot of fruit or decision, I guess, if you will. If we have a great road trip, then, we're trending in the right way, and we will give the players the tools necessary that, hopefully they need to get there. If we don't have the road trip that we need, then we'll have to go in a different direction. But we still have some games past that road trip, and it might be one of those 11th hour decisions that you have to be made on certain things. So I want to give everybody the runway and the ample time to the first couple games of this homestand. The message seemed to be loud and clear, but since that point, I think we're right back on. A little bit on track, if you will, and we'll see what we can do tonight. Tonight will be a big test. Actually, the whole road trip will be a big test for our hockey team.
Well, I mean, they have 8 games roughly, Willie, before the deadline, I believe, which is March 8th. They have a game that night before against Buffalo. But they start off, obviously, after they play the Kings, who's a pretty good team. But this is, let me know what you think about this, Willie. On this next couple of games, these 8 games, or at least 3 of the next 4, they got San Jose, Anaheim, and Ottawa. You don't want to say they are winnable games, but those are winnable games. Those are games that they gotta win, Willie. They gotta win in that stretch in the next 3 to 4. Now they started off well with beating Vegas in St. Louis after the Dallas game. What they do to Thursday, different story. Hopefully they can get a win versus a good Kings team. But then after that, you got San Jose, Anaheim, and Ottawa. Those are 3 games they should win.
Yeah, I agree. It is, if you look at the schedule, there's a little bit more of a stretch of games where you're playing more teams that are out of the playoffs than in the playoffs, and you hope that you can sustain some success in there. You may not win every game, but you hope that you have good matchups there and you can take advantage. You've got a back-to-back at the end of this road trip where, for some reason, we go from L.A. up to San Jose and then back to Anaheim. Yeah, I mean, this is how it does. There's always some quirks in the schedule where you're like, why did they do it that way? Why don't we just stay down here and play the Kings and then the Ducks? Does this make any sense? But you're absolutely right. This is a stretch where, if you're playing your best hockey and you put your best out there, you're going to beat some of these teams, and you're going to beat more than you don't. Barry Trotz's answer was interesting. But before we get into what Barry said, because Barry had another great interview with Jared yesterday where there's a lot out there, and I encourage everybody to listen. If you didn't hear it, it's on the podcast. I would encourage you. It's a great way to keep up to date because Barry Trotz is going to tell you what he's thinking. He commended Ryan O'Reilly and that leadership group, of course, Roman Josi, the captain, on down, for how they handled the decision. You could tell when we talked to Ryan just a few minutes ago that he wasn't thrilled, right? Ryan O'Reilly, by the way, is a huge music fan, right? He plays the guitar. The Blues gave him like a Pearl Jam guitar as a reward for all of his service to the team. So that just ought to give you an idea of how much he loves music. So I think the veterans, they took it like pros, and Barry Trotz certainly appreciated that. You could tell in his voice that Ryan O'Reilly was like, we could have gotten some good things out of that trip after all, but he gets it, right? So they took it like pros, and they responded accordingly. So what do you do at the trade deadline? My feeling is, guys, that they're going to be, because there's 5 teams in the race, every night you look at the scoreboard, they're not all going to start losing and the Predators start winning. So it's very unlikely that the Predators are going to be way in or way out. Just kind of like the bubble works in the NCAA tournament. We'll start talking about that here in the next few weeks. Joe Lunardi's going to be everywhere you turn. Anytime you flip on ESPN, he's going to be popping up in the middle of games and everything like that. And it's because there's probably not going to be a lot of separation. So I think that the decisions Barry Trotz has today probably won't be a lot different until March 8th. And he talked about the runway. So I think some of this is going to come right down to the wire. I would imagine that they will probably trade, even if they keep doing well and take advantage of the schedule here. I still think he will deal a player or two that is playing consistently tonight because there's so many guys in the last year of their contracts. And that doesn't mean that you can't, deal one guy and then maybe bring in a veteran or two to replace them and be a better team because of it. Or just open up a spot for a younger player to come in who's playing really well at Milwaukee, and maybe you become a better team that way. So it may not be just the traditional, we're going to sell or we're going to buy. I think that it's more likely to be somewhere in between. There might be a combination of selling and buying.
I'm with you, Willie, that I don't think that Barry Trotz's mind is going to drastically change from now until over the next couple of weeks, the next 2 weeks before the trade deadline. I kind of thought if the Predators lost last night, that kind of really would have been like the feeling of, all right, this is it, it's been fun, but this team's not going to make the playoffs. Because they won, again, my mind is not drastically changed. We are, 56 games into the season?
Yeah, so there's still 26 games left.
But I don't think that
about
this...
what could happen in 26 games.
Totally. Oh, totally. And we've seen, crazy things happen with this team in the past. Like last year, he sold at the deadline, and then these young guys were electric. Totally. There's a lot of hockey left to be played, but I don't think that this team is drastically going to turn into something that we haven't seen. That this team is drastically going to turn into now a team that can contend for the cup. I think this team, they are what they are. They look great some nights. They don't look good enough some nights. And overall, this roster doesn't look like one that is built to contend under Andrew Burnett's system over the next 3 to 5 years. I think you should look at it and say, what can we get? What kind of assets can we get in return to build a Predators team that is able to contend, that does fit into this long-term vision, that does fit into Andrew Burnett's system a little bit more? And if you go on a run and win, the next 3 or 4 games, then great. That's exciting. But you're still in a very tightly contested playoff race. I still think that you can sell and make the playoffs. Heck, this team almost did that last year. So
Right. At least
my mind
partially
is
so.
not right. Yes. So my mind is not completely changed based off of a win last night and 2 wins on the road trip so far. Of course, crazy things can happen, but my mind hasn't changed, and I don't really think that changing your mind completely from now until March 8th is the wisest decision for this team. Let's keep in mind, the priority is the next 3 to 5 years. The priority is not the next 3 to 5 weeks.
Well, they could make a true
dead on.
Yeah, they can make a true statement. This team in this next stretch of games that they have away and at home right before the trade deadline, because they only play 2 teams, and I'm counting the LA Kings in there. They're only playing 2 teams that have a chance of making the playoffs, really, within this stretch. Correct me if I'm wrong, Willie. So you got to take advantage of situations like this. You got to take advantage of opportunities like this. And I'm sure that's what Barry is looking at as well. You look at the schedule, you don't want to count your wins and losses, but you look at the schedule and you say, if this team is going to make a push before the deadline, this is an ideal schedule for it. You have 2 teams that Colorado and the Kings. Colorado's basically in, but the Kings, but everybody else is basically out of it, or they're fighting just like Nashville. And
Right, or on the
Nashville.
bubble. Right.
Exactly.
Like, there's a big game with Minnesota next week, for example, and Minnesota's right there with the Predators. They've done a great job to claw back into it. They've been through a lot, but the Wild are right there. So that's a great bubble game, right? There's another game, I think, with Seattle down the road. But you're right. This is a great chance for this team to make a statement. So, we just talked to Ryan O'Reilly. That was great perspective. I don't think Ryan O'Reilly wants to have 5 guys get traded and have him go, well, I came to Nashville and then now we're back to square one. Now what are we looking at? Another 3 or 4 years. So let's just take a couple of examples. Let's put Saros aside, right? Because that's the big one. If they were to make that trade, that would be a totally different direction that you're heading, because he means so much. And just hearing what Barry Trotz said about him was interesting. I still think there's not a whole lot of phone calls that come in that have an offer that would even get Barry Trotz's attention, right? So that, again, tells you what it's going to take for him to actually make that deal. But let's take Kevin Lankinen, who played last night and played very well. Could you find a team that is looking for a goalie to trade for Kevin Lankinen, give you some asset that you would like, swap him out for Yaroslav Askarov to give him the experience of playing in the NHL? I think that's possible, right? And if you don't, then you got a really steady goalie in Lankinen who could help you get into that playoff spot. The games that UC Saros doesn't play, and I don't know how many of the 26 there'll be, 6 to 8, something like that. Those are huge points. So you need good efforts by your goalie there. But who gives you a better chance to win, Askarov or Lankinen? Well, I don't know, but because Askarov is doing some pretty amazing things, right? So that's an example of where you could, quote, sell, but your team is maybe arguably just as good or maybe better. Just like with one of the defensemen. They've got a surplus of right-handed defensemen. It's well told. You've got Fabro, a restricted free agent, Carrier, unrestricted, Barry, unrestricted. If one of them is traded and you slide in Spencer Stastny, are you any worse off? Maybe not, right? So that's where you could be on the surface, you're selling, but you've got pretty much the same type of team, and maybe, if in a perfect world, you're a better team.
I do have some thoughts on that I want to get back into. But coming up next, Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow will join us. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Look at the time. Look at the time.
Look at the time. It is Hutton O'Clock. Hutton O'Clock comes a little bit early this week. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. And joining us now is Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Hutton, always appreciate you for stopping by. Let's talk some Titans free agency. I saw yesterday an article on ESPN.com had Hollywood Brown and Chidobe Awuzie, wide receiver and cornerback respectively, to the Titans in free agency. Those be two guys you would look into, and is that enough for the Tennessee Titans? What should the Titans' approach in free agency be?
In a word, is that enough? No. No.
It's not even close to enough.
No. Guys, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot about T. Higgins, about a sign and trade with the Cincinnati. You mentioned Hollywood Brown. I like Calvin Ridley personally. Jacksonville's going to owe more on their cap if they keep him, and it locks in. So I think he'll be gone. Personally, I would go through the draft for wide receiver. I would spend money on the offensive line, and that's not sexy when it comes to the NFL draft. We're waiting around to see, because we've seen them wait, and we thought they're going to do wide receiver last year. They didn't. I would load up on the offensive line, spend the money there. I think that's a better investment, and I think you can hit on wide receiver nowadays, personally. And I would let those guys, especially with the idea that Hopkins is back with Levis, let him lead that room, and I would center around knowing that there has been success. If you're going with the trend of the new age NFL, Kansas City just went back-to-back without Tyreek Hill, which is remarkable.
But Kansas City also has something that you do not.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no doubt. No doubt. But I'm also viewing it from, Brock Purdy was also in the Super Bowl because of the wide receivers that they have around him and the help that they have around that quarterback. So I load up in the draft. They don't have a lot of picks. That's the other issue with all of this. So they're going to have to go pick and choose in free agency. They've got money to spend. That's good news. They've got an overhaul. So in a word, no, that's not enough. And you can name a bunch of players that are better than the roster they fielded last year. So sure, bring them on.
I know it's really easy to say, well, just trade back, pick up more picks. We need a trade partner, but let's just live in a fantasy world where there is a trade partner to trade back to 12. 13, 14, pick up an extra pick next year's draft or another second round pick in this year's draft. And there would still be a player at a position of need, a good player at a position of need at 12, 13, or 14. Would that be something that you would entertain if you ran the Tennessee Titans?
Well, it depends on the offer and where the quarterbacks slot in. The problem is, Caroline, I think the quarterbacks that are going to go top 10 will go ahead of the Titans, personally. There's going to be a huge run on, I think, wide receiver and offensive tackle. I would get the premier offensive tackle if I'm waiting there. Again, I'm assuming that the value is going to be there on the offensive line. This is a great year for offensive line. There's going to be 70 offensive linemen at the NFL Combine next week. 70. That's insane.
What is
a lot
the
of guys
average number? Is that like an overwhelmingly more than maybe any other year?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, normally you have 70, have a group of 70 at the skilled positions, right? Mm-hmm. I was talking with Jim Nagy, executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, and he said that there are at least 10 top 2 rounds, top 100 players. So, and they had them at the Senior Bowl. This is a great year to be offensive line needy. And by the way, the league is offensive line needy. There's some bad offensive line play. I think that's part of the reason why the offenses look so bad in total. But I think a lot of teams are going to rush to get those guys. So, I mean, if you're trading back, Caroline, you're trading back because a quarterback fell, or you addressed your offensive tackle needs in free agency, and you're letting someone go up and get a guy that's going to be a potential franchise player. That Titans, personally, go get elite talent and use them in year one. That's my motto for 2024. If you're a rookie on this team, it's time to play and expect that you're going to see some improvement throughout the year instead of this slow play, especially the first rounders. at key positions. I'm not wasting a first-round pick on a guy that needs to be slow played by trading back and getting some late first rounder. Go get a guy that you can address. Go get Brock Bowers if you're looking to trade back instead of trading back. Again, get help and get the elite talent that other teams are willing to trade up for. And if you're sold on Will Levis, go get him help immediately.
We'll talk with Jonathan Hutton discussing the Tennessee Titans and the holes that need to be filled for this team upcoming season.
We don't have enough time, mate.
Yeah, we really don't. But looking at this offseason, the one question I do want to get your answer on is Treylon Burks, because we've looked at just about every position and the coaches that they brought in, and we say, well, Callahan should straighten out. Bill should straighten out the offensive line woes. And the guys that played, Skoronski, he should be better because you're bringing in Bill Callahan. Nicholas Petit should be better. Hopefully he will be better if you're bringing in a Bill Callahan, a guy that is known for really transforming offensive linemen. Why aren't we saying that for Treylon Burks now potentially being put in an offense that is geared more toward passing? Because my thing last year with Treylon with the system was, you didn't make him a priority. And when Vrabel got on the airwaves and said we don't do that for players, that was a bold-faced lie, because you were doing it for D-Hop, which he deserves. And you see it across the board with every team. So when you say we don't do it, but then the next following game, you come out and you target him, the first 3 or 4 passing possessions, that means you wasn't being truthful. So why aren't we saying that about Treylon Burks and what they could potentially do with Treylon Burks now that seems to be more in a pass-happy offense?
So you're bullish on Burks, right?
Yes.
You still think he could be a number 1 guy?
Because my thing is I see it.
Mace.
Yeah.
He needs to act like it.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're right. You're right. Absolutely.
So part of this is on Treylon Burks.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sentiment, and again, we're about to find out what's true and what's not, because the old coaching staff is out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sentiment that he's not trying very hard to get back to the field whenever he's, got a bum knee or whatever it was that he was dealing with outside of the concussion stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the concussion stuff. I'm not trying to make light of that. But we went through the bye week, and there was he could come back, and it wasn't back immediately. You thought he'd be back after the London trip, for instance. There was a sentiment that he wasn't necessarily feeling up to par, ready to go. Well, I mean, I don't know. You only hear whispers about that. There wasn't anything like there was just pressing that was calling anyone out, but at the same time, there wasn't anything saying the opposite. We heard a lot about that, by the way. There was a Carthon Vrabel whisper that was going around that they waited until week 18 to address. Point being, first off season is whatever. He came in out of shape. They blamed it on asthma, whatever. He was out of shape. Second off season, big one for him. And we still haven't seen that progression because of whatever reason. He's in the training room. Sometimes that happens. It's football. No one's healthy 100%. Mace, with this offense, knowing that Will Levis, for instance, has the best setup and the most investment that he could possibly have, given the coaching hire and the change, Burks has got to feel the same way. Mm-hmm. And if I'm Treylon Burks, I'm spending an off season with Will Levis. Aren't you?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm looking at I want to see that. I mean, again, that's on the player as much as it is the system and the coach. They would be the staff would be dumb not to use Treylon Burks' talent, but the talented player has to be ready to go and has to be invested to be the number 1 guy. I don't know the behind the scenes aspects of it. I raise my hand and fully admit that, but you're right. He's got number 1 talent. I need to see that. You see it in him. I don't see it on the field to the point where, I mean, you're absolutely right. They feed the football to DeAndre. Look at how many targets DeAndre Hopkins had in that New Orleans Saints game, week 1, mm-hmm. right? Like that's all they did was throw the football his way with Tannehill. And if Burks were reliable, Tannehill would go to him too. I want to see more of that, and I want to see the climb up the ladder. We saw Chigakonkwo, for instance, who's going to be on this team. They need him. Chigakonkwo, Mace, he went through a lull, but then we saw him get back to producing something towards the ends of the year. That needs to happen to carry over for him. Burks didn't show that to me, right? Like I've never seen that from him to where I'm like, man, he's got some momentum now and he's starting to click. It's got to happen. And I don't know what he would pull in a trade, but at the same time, I don't know if the Titans can afford to trade the dude. They need to make something of him, and this new staff needs to view him as a piece to the puzzle, not a detriment that and some trade asset for another pick. Because I mean, they're not going to be able to swap the investment they already have in him, and they've made some bad investments early in these drafts. It's the reason why we see the turnover in the front office.
I think if the Titans wanted to trade him, I don't know what you get in return. I don't know what the market looks like for trading Burks.
Yeah, but again, like.
Well,
based
hold
on
that
return,
thought. We're going to take a quick break.
I feel like they're better off just trying to invest in him, but he needs to invest in the actual job of not just playing receiver, being that dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at it from Hopkins' view. He's one more year here, right? One more year in Nashville. Burks is supposed to be the number one guy, and Hopkins was supposed to be the two, and that is not anywhere close to the case here. But right now, they're going to draft a guy, and Burks is going to be the three. That should piss him off, and I don't want to see him play content. And again, maybe he doesn't. I just don't know, D-Mase. I don't know the mindset of the player, and I want to see the guy that played at Arkansas with KJ Jefferson.
We're going to take a quick break. Jonathan Hunt will stick around with us coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, is with us now.
Yeah, you're right about that, Hut. With Traylon Burks, eventually it's going to have to be on him. But I just see and granted, listen, the word potential can ultimately get an individual fired, a head coach
French
fired.
for not good enough.
Yeah. But I do, and I have seen the potential. And to me, if you're going to give him a chance to be your one or your two, you have to approach it as such. I don't think the last coaching staff, mainly the head coach, they didn't approach it that way. Once they got D-Hop, they were like, okay, our offense is going to shift, and Traylon, you get in when you fit in. And part of it could have been the injuries where he wasn't on the field as much. But I just thought they could have got a lot more out of Traylon Burks than what they've gotten in the last 2 years.
I see where you're coming from, except for the fact that before they got D-Hop, they stuck with him as their number one and literally had no one else, Mace. They didn't even address it in the draft until the 7th round. So they're giving us two different messages on him with that, you know?
No, you're right.
That's the weird part of all of this. They treated him as the number one and that we're okay and we're set and this guy's ready, and then didn't use him whenever he was actually on the field. There's a disconnect. And again, this could be a reset for him. I don't think that he's some beta. You know what I mean? I don't think he's withered away, because I saw the guy play 2 years ago at Arkansas. What he did there is not what he's doing here, but that doesn't have to be all on him. I just don't know. But what I do know is he can only handle his end of it. And he's gone from a player that you mentioned potential. He's got it. But he's also a player that I don't think of when it comes to, okay, here are the factors as to why the Titans are in this game this coming Sunday. I just don't. I don't look at him as the guy that you are consistently counting on. He can be the X factor. I don't put Traylon Burks in that column yet, and that's on him as much as it is on. It's not like the quarterbacks wouldn't go to him. They don't have anybody else to throw to. That's on the field. We've got Jameis Winston calling his own plays in the final game of the season for Dennis Allen, but yet the quarterback isn't going to go to Traylon Burks if he's reliable. I mean, you know what I'm saying here. He's got to be on the field, number one, and number two. Prior to all of that, I hope he treats the offseason like it's his a rookie year all over again with the brand new staff, and he's on a different team, because guy's got tons of potential. And I'm with you. He's his 16th overall pick. Like it or not, he's going to be compared to AJ. And he's missing that one. That AJ just had that one chip on the shoulder all the time. He's always got to be pissed off about something, and that's the comparison that I can't make with Traylon Burks, because I just don't know. I don't get that same sentiment.
Yeah, you're right about that, Hut. I think his mindset, his mentality has to change if he's going to be that number one guy. If it doesn't change, I don't see how.
And
he can be
if
that
he
guy.
had that, Mace.
Yeah.
If he had that, Vrabel would love him, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll see, because Vrabel's gone now, so we'll see.
I know. But if he had that energy, that vibe to him, I think that's a Vrabel type player. That's why I'm reading into it the way I am. I mean, Vrabel wants to win games and did. Burks does too. I need to see more there. And it's hard to just count on the fact that he's going to bring it. That's why they have to draft someone that's better.
You can't count on anyone.
I know.
On him to bring it. Why? I can't put all my eggs in that basket.
Did at this time.
And that was the wrong
decision.
decision.
Their plan was to even address the position.
I don't think it was necessarily the wrong decision. We're talking with Jonathan Hutton. I don't think it was necessarily a wrong decision. I just think that, like Hut said, at one point, they did look at him as their number one because of what they did in the draft. But then you go out and get D-Hop, and then the whole focus shifts. So what caused that shift in their focus as far as him being the number one to him now being the number two? And frankly, he was the number 3 or 4 on this team when he played, So I get it. I do understand. Quickly before I pass it to Willy, You mentioned outside of the tackle position, what are
Yep.
the positions they should address in the draft, or what are the positions they should address via free agency? Because free agency comes up before the draft, so they can probably have a few things sort of checked off their box before they enter the draft.
I would load up on corner in free agency. I mean, they wanted to give Byard a pay cut. I think that's more of a sentiment of Carthon wanting to shift money from safety to outside corner, because right now all you're bringing back is McCreary of the trio of that top group as of now. So I would look at free agency at corner, center as well. There's some free agent centers are available. I'm getting a top end center because without Ben Jones, I felt that was a huge piece missing last year. And the progression of Will Levis, I'm not bringing in a rookie center, and I'm certainly not bringing back a smaller center that we saw last year that was overpaid based on the value of the position. Again, I'm wide receiver, offensive tackle. I'm addressing both areas of free agency in the draft there. And I mean, what are they going to do at running back? That's the other piece to this is what. Outside of Spears, what's that other link? Are they going to get the San Fran version of kind of the same type of guy, or are we going to see a 1-2 punch and like a change of pace type back? I don't know, but we'll have that answer sooner rather than later. And defensively, I mean, linebacker, and of course on the defensive side of the football, what happens up front? Because I mean that's where they have their most investment. They've got to. That's to me is on the front end of putting pressure on the quarterback. They've also addressed the corner position based on their defensive coordinator. And I think they're going to invest on the outside there, which will also help the pass rush. And on the offense, it's offensive line first. I think regardless of what they're doing, you can invest in Will Levis by just getting him more protection. Keep him healthy. That's easier said than done. But with Callahan as an offensive line coach, I don't think they're just going to, tiptoe through free agency and not address it until the draft. I think this is more of a clean sweep on both areas at the two positions, corner and line, and that's just based on the big hires that they've made.
The center and the other running back to put with Spears really intrigued me. Those two things that you just brought up there. By the way, we're talking to Jonathan Hutton as we continue to look at this Titans offseason, the free agency period, the combine, the draft, all on the horizon here. So, Hut, I was thinking this. There's a lot that could shake out in where everything goes with what the Bears decide to do with Justin Fields before the draft. But what do you think is going to happen there? Like, if you were a team, and take obviously the Titans are not in the mix here, but I'm just wondering who bites and offers them something that's worthwhile, because I can see the Bears being a little bit on the fence here, but they probably won't be able to resist the temptation to grab one of the shiny new toys when you're at the top of the draft.
What does Caleb Williams want to do, Willie? That's my first question. I'm flipping it because his dad is going to continue to chirp. There's going to be drama there. There. Cliff Kingsbury's the OC in Washington. They have the second pick. Cliff Kingsbury was with Caleb Williams last year at USC. There's something up with that. There's something. Caleb Williams is addressing it on Instagram when Kingsbury got the gig. Eli Manning did this. It's possible. Like, you can speak your way out of a team drafting, and that brings the value down if you're not into Caleb. If you're going all the way up for Caleb Williams, I would invest in Justin Fields personally. Justin Fields, though, needs a restart, needs a reset. Caleb Williams going to Chicago, too, I think is not going to work because Eberflus, I don't know why they brought him back. I feel like a year from now, they're going to be resetting an offensive coordinator and a new offense for their rookie quarterback, personally. And Virginia McCaskey, great lady, 99 years old. Whenever she passes, this could be a team that is up for sale because they have so many children that are not invested in football that the inheritance taxes are going to be interesting here when it comes up for vote on what to do with the team. There's a lot of things that are in flux with that organization more than just the stadium. So I just the rookie that goes to Chicago is in for a long 4 to 5 years. because I think you're in for more than just a reset after year one, like Bryce Young's going through, like Will Levis is going through, like Trevor Lawrence went through. It's not easy to just not be able to progress your rookie year the way you're supposed to in this league at that spot. Meanwhile, we feel pretty good about what Stroud is doing in Houston, and he's got his OC back for another year. Ben Johnson continues to stay in Detroit, so Goff is going to continue to do his thing. Point being, it's just I think we're in for a wild few months here because it's the Heisman Trophy winner didn't have that great of a year, far from it, and made more headlines on what his dad was saying about some things than anything else. I'm intrigued because I think it's more than just Chicago's decision.
I think that's a great point. And the other thing that really intrigues me about the whole thing is, as we know, the first-round quarterbacks are always a mixed bag. I don't care who
Sure.
the names are or what year they are. As great as you might think Caleb Williams or Drake Mays is, I mean, you just don't know until you get him out there. And you've got Justin Fields, who's right on the fence. You've got some people that are saying he's never going to get there. And then you got others that are saying, okay, well, give him a chance, put him on a decent team. He's going to keep getting a little bit better year by year, and he is obviously a talent. But this is what's intriguing me. If I'm sitting back there, I'm saying, I kind of like Fields, but I don't want to overpay. I'm trying to use the fact that all the forces are pulling the Bears. It's almost like they're locked into taking a quarterback with the first pick. And so that probably puts them in not a very good leverage position to deal Fields. So what if the offers for Fields just aren't really good? What do you do then? Could you possibly hold on to him?
No, because you have to pick up his option.
You don't want to give him away, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you would have. He has a 5th-year option that they can pick up, which they have done. But they also he's due an extension. So if you trade him, the team's going to have to extend him and give him the contract. I like his skill set. I don't think he's had much investment around him there. Part of it's on Fields, part of it's not. Again, I'll go back to the whole Burks thing. Fields has got to show it too. I just don't think he's going to be able to show it in Chicago.
He's got flaws. He's got big flaws.
Sure. I mean, I think if I'm a free agent quarterback or if I'm a rookie quarterback, Washington is a team I want to land with because of Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. I mean, you're stepping into a spot where you can have assets and you're throwing the football around a bit. You got DJ Moore in Chicago, but that didn't help out. They didn't feed him the football enough a year ago. New OC coming from Seattle. But Russell Wilson's going to be available, Willie. You've got Kirk Cousins, who's going to be in the market. Ryan Tannehill's available. Of course, the rookies and Fields. So Pittsburgh's looking for competition, quote unquote competition for Pickett. Atlanta is in the quarterback market. There's plenty of teams that don't necessarily have the draft capital to move around and move up to the top two spots. And the other thing too is what do teams feel like about Drake May, who's not being talked about, but is the number 2 guy right now? Where is he on this hierarchy of how close is he to Williams compared to the rest of this quarterback crop? Because that's ultimately what you're judging, and that's ultimately the haul that Chicago can get. Chicago should go with Caleb Williams if Caleb Williams is going to be the guy there, if he's invested there. But I just there's just too much chatter every now and then that to me just following the Manning model. If they want to go somewhere, and that was already out there whenever we thought Arizona's had the number 1 pick, it was already out there that he didn't want to necessarily. He was considering coming back for a year based on who was going to have the top pick. I don't think that just goes away in the ether, personally.
I feel like there hasn't been a lot of conversation about any of these quarterbacks outside of Caleb Williams in such an
I thought I was going to be more
quarterback market.
I'm not energized by this group the way I thought I would be when the college football season started. Personally,
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's just one of these guys is going to be great. Odds are. Like if a quarterback goes 1, 2, 3, like it's projected top 3 picks, one of those dudes is going to pan out. It's all about fit and you have continuity with your coaches. I guess Washington's going to have that. I guess, but again, I don't think it's going to happen in Chicago.
Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Hut, appreciate you for stopping by. Appreciate you for working with the schedule change, and we'll chat with you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
idea of spending heavy on the offensive line in free agency and drafting a receiver, the idea of that, of loading up as I just knock the microphone next to me, the idea of loading up in free agency at a position of need so you don't put so much pressure on the draft, on filling those positions of need in the draft, I understand and I'm on board with that sentiment. I just don't know what offensive linemen there are in free agency to spend on. Because you look at, Tyron Smith will be available potentially in free agency, but he might go back to the Cowboys.
Yeah, he said he wants to stay in Dallas.
Lloyd Cushenberry is a center that could be available, but I think that the Broncos might place the franchise tag on him. Dwayne Brown is another one that could be available, left tackle in free agency, but he's hurt.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't look at every single offensive lineman that could be available in free agency. I just don't know what you're really going to get. Like, is that the smart position to spend on in free agency?
I think what happens, let's just say the offensive line, because free agency will come before the draft. And I think a lot of us believe that the Titans will go left tackle. Now, they could go receiver. You just never know.
But if you pick up a free agent left tackle.
Yeah, then are you looking at – it has to be a left tackle that's young enough that you can see at least 5 years out of him, because you don't want to get a guy, bring him in, you only get a year or two out of him, and then you got to repeat this cycle all over again. So if you do go out in free agency and get a guy, it has to be a guy you see that's going to be on your roster when you head into that new stadium. I always point to that new stadium as that's when the Titans, they need to have their team that's going to compete for a Super Bowl, regardless of how you slice it. When they walk into that stadium, they have to have a team that can compete for a Super Bowl.
What if they don't?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the fans to buy in if you don't have it. You got a new stadium. You're asking people to pay all this money, but you don't have a team that's ready to win. You got to have it.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
You want to get off to a good start.
Absolutely. So I would like to talk about this more because it's interesting how they can potentially approach this because free agency comes up before the draft, and you just named it. There's not many top-end tackles or guards, for that matter, that are going to be on the market. And if they're on the market, then either they want a lot of money or there's something wrong with them.
Well, let's continue this conversation coming up next. Free agency versus the draft. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we are brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
We are about to end the month of February, so we would have been 2 months into the new year. And I know you reflect on what you did in the past, and you make plans for the year ahead. And if you're going to make those plans, and if you made that resolution to lose weight this year, and you diet and you exercise, but still struggle to lose those pounds, it could be that you have hormone deficiencies, okay? Call my friends at Cool Springs MD. They're experienced doctors specialize in identifying which of your hormones need to be balanced and provide a tailored solution designed just for you. No one else but you. Hormone deficiencies can also cause more problems than weight loss. You may experience mood swings, fatigue, and a decreased sex drive. Hormone replacement therapy or HRT can help. Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and his team understands it's a frustrating cycle and wants to help you be the best you this year. There's no better time now to achieve that healthy lifestyle, to achieve that new you and that best you, okay? So what are you waiting for? Give Cool Springs MD a call today for an appointment. Here's the number, 615-486-3458. That's 615-486-3458, or visit their website at coolspringsmd.com. Don't let imbalanced hormones hinder your resolution. Give Cool Springs MD a call to take control of your health with HRT at Cool Springs MD.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it is Oktoberfest every single day. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals right now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Appreciate Jonathan Hutton for joining us in the last segment. And one point that we were kind of breaking down, one point that Jonathan Hutton made was, look, pay the offensive lineman in free agency, draft a receiver in the first round. And I totally see that line of thinking. You know, whatever the Titans decide to do, pay this position and draft that position, whatever it is. One thing that is very clear and obvious to me that the Titans need to do, you have to spend money in free agency. Chad Brinker said on the official Titans podcast, look, we want to be a team that builds through the draft and supplements through free agency. I get that. I think that's the right approach. But that's not the right approach necessarily right now, because you don't have a roster that's equipped to do that. You don't have a roster that you can fill only through the draft. You don't have enough picks. You have money. You have the resources. So if that's your long-term vision, great. I'm on board with that. But you have the money. You have the cash to spend. So do it. Spend the money. And if you don't spend the money in free agency, you're not going to be a very good team. You're not going to win very many games. And I think that this offseason is an incredibly pivotal and crucial one for Ran Carthon. That he needs to instill confidence within this fan base. Because it's a different setup this year. I don't think Ran Carthon should be completely off the hook for what happened last season. But it is now your show. You are running this team. You have final say. Ran Carthon is the Tennessee Titans. I think that he needs to show this offseason, look, we're going to do whatever it takes to win football games. And we're going to have to spend money in order to do that.
Yeah, I think they're going to, obviously there's two approaches to this. It's, okay, we're going to be the first team to jump out there, and we're going to try to sign, at least one or two of these top-tier free agents at the position that we need, whether it be tackle, receiver, corner, guard. Hell, I can go through them all because they need them.
Not enough time.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they can take that approach, or they can take the approach of, hey, listen, we're not going to jump out there and overpay for individuals.
But you're going to have to overpay. That's free agency.
They don't necessarily have to overpay. I think great GMs, good GMs, look at the market, assess the market, and they don't jump out there unless there's one guy that they know we got to have. If they were one guy away, then if they were that left tackle away and there was a left tackle out there, or a cornerback away and Ladarius Sneed is out there, okay, pay him. Pay him. You may have to overpay. Get him, because you feel as a team you're one guy away from really solidifying yourself and making that push to a playoff.
But how do you get one guy away?
But
you build your
yes,
team.
But what I'm saying is you build smartly. You don't overpay for the sake of I'm not going to overpay because I got the money. I'm not going to go out there and I hear my son saying this all the time. Dad, just buy. You got it. It's like, no. Just because I got it don't mean I need to spend that money for it. You see what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
To me,
you're not going to be very good.
No, you're going. I've seen team after team. We could go down the line with the teams that are consistently good. What do? Either they, one, sign their own players back that they draft, or two, they don't overpay for people. They're just not going to do it. Why? Because they got a system in place. They identify who they want on their team. Are they the type of players that we want inside of our locker room? Are they Titan guys? Are they, Buffalo guys? Are they Kansas City guys, Raven guys, Steeler guys? But we're not going to grossly overpay for you.
But there
Assess the market.
Some teams that can afford to do that. Like the Kansas City Chiefs don't have to overpay for Tyreek Hill because they have Patrick Mahomes. You don't have Patrick Mahomes.
But what have we said?
What have
we said, though? I am going to subscribe to this. I'm going to stay consistent with this, whether the Titans bill it this way or not. And I think it would be smart to kind of present the Barry Trotz-ism. Right? Is it a rebuild? Is it a retool? Remember what Elliot Friedman did on Hockey Night in Canada? it's kind of like you're trying to set the bar low. You don't have to win this year. You can play the rebuilding card for 1 year. You can't build it for two. You can't do it for 2 or 3 years. That doesn't fly. But you can take this year as a let's see what we've got. Let's find some pieces. And I agree with D-Mase wholeheartedly. You cannot just dive in and overpay mediocre players top dollar, because that's what puts you behind the 8 ball 2 years from now and 3 years from now. You got this dead cap money sitting around. And you're like, we don't have any. We got to make moves to try to do cap gymnastics. You don't want to be there. I go back to what Chad Brinker said in the podcast. He said, keep an eye on the Costco, right? I just noticed today the Lions cut a veteran safety. I don't know if that's a fit for the Titans or not. Probably not. I don't see it. But there's going to be cap casualties around. Pretty good players that might be a fit that you could plug a hole with without giving up too much cap space. So that's what I say. I want to say, if I'm the Titans, I'm going to take a step forward this year, but I'm not going to promise everybody we're going to fill all the holes by throwing a lot of money at mediocre players.
And you don't have
And I'm not saying, Carolyn, hold on.
overpay
I'm not
mediocre
saying
players.
don't go out and pay market value for individuals that you want. I'm just saying, don't grossly overpay for a guy. And what if he ends up not working out? We're going to have the same conversation
Then
we
you
had
cut him
about
and move
Dillon.
on and find another one.
We're going to have the same conversation we had for
Cut
Dillon.
him, move
But
on,
you're
find a
caught
new
with
left
dead-
tackle.
but it's
Exactly.
dead
You caught
cap,
with
but
the
it's
dead
dead
money
cap.
in there. And then we're
Dead
going to be
money.
saying, Rand Carthon is not a good GM. Look at what he did. He grossly overpaid for that guy.
But that's why you
and look
pick
at
the
what they
right
got.
players. That's why you pay the right players.
That's what I'm
You're not
saying.
just going to pick up a random left tackle on the street and pay him $40 million a year. You're going to find the right left tackle.
That's
and then
what-
it's not overpaying because they're a
Exactly.
good player that can help your team.
That's what I'm saying.
If there is a $25 million left tackle on the street that you think we need this player, then you go and pay that player.
$25 million, the market value, or you may have to pay him 26 or 27. But the
Because
grossly
you overpay in free agency.
grossly,
That's what free agency
but the
is.
grossly overpay for an individual, unless he's a quarterback or unless he's one of these stud tackles, then okay, I get it. But there's not a stud tackle. Honestly, other than Jefferson, that could potentially be a free agent. I'm not sure any of these free agents. Chris Jones is
I was
another
gonna
one.
say, what about Chris Jones?
Chris Jones. Put those two to the side. There's not another free agent that I would grossly overpay. Now, I need to go back and look at the list again. But there's not a free agent outside of those two individuals, and one of them may not end up being a free agent, meaning Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not grossly overpaying. I will overpay for Chris Jones. But these other cats out here, nah, I'm not overpaying for you. I'm not grossly overpaying for
And
you.
who's
just
playing
to have you.
corner? Who's playing safety? Who's
You
playing tight
exactly
end? Who's your
understand-
backup quarterback?
You're
Who's
not
your
going to
left
fill it
tackle?
all. That's why I'm asking. Let me ask you guys. Do you agree with my statement that you don't have to win this year? We saw the power ranking, right? They're 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. They're 27th, 28th in the power rankings. Expectations are low. This is a rebuild. You don't have to win this year.
Do you think
we
Rand
agree with that?
Carthon would say that the Titans don't have to win this year?
Yes, I think.
don't
well,
think. I
he's
think
not-
that's an
he's not
incredibly
gonna
dangerous
say it.
thing to
He's not
take
gonna
that
say
approach.
it. No, he's not going to say it. But what you're trying to do is build. You're trying to build, and you've got to build smart. You can't just try to impress everybody and pay a mediocre guy top dollar, because that doesn't transform the guy into a better player. I don't care what position you're talking about. And you have too many. You just pointed it out, Caroline. You have too many holes to fill in one off season. They're not going to be able to do it. So be smart with it. You fill what's available this year. You have a good draft. You see where you are next year. And it really, in 2 years and 3 years, that's when I want my team, when Will Levis is maturing, hopefully into a really good quarterback, then you have, I think, a chance to win. But this year is a building year.
But how do you build?
You build.
It
took
by
us.
underpaying or
No, it's
by
not-
trying to find bargain players.
It's not
That's
about
how you end up
no.
with a Sean Murphy Bunting on a 1-year deal, and then he becomes a free agent, and hoping that Andre Dillard turns
It's
into
not
something.
about- it's
you
not-
get what you pay for
It's
in
not
this league.
about underpaying, but I don't want to grossly overpay. You know how long it took? That 99 Super Bowl team wasn't built in a day. It wasn't.
And I don't
It was-
expect
no, but
this
listen,
Titans
no,
team
no.
to go to the Super Bowl
But-
this
but
year to be
hear
built in a day.
Hear me out. 97, we were 8-8. We didn't have any huge contracts. We maybe have one or two. You know, I don't even think Eddie got his big contract that year because he was just drafted 2 years ago. And Steve didn't get his big contract until later on. So we had 97 to build, 98 to build. We brought in free agencies. 99 was the year everything hit. This is a process, like Willie said.
Yes.
This is a 2 year. But
and free agency is also a process. That's also how you build a team.
You are right. But if the old man was still here, he would probably say, don't grossly overpay for a free agent. You build your team through the draft, which they have to do, but then you supplement that through free agency. You try to get
your roster's not in that position to do that.
Not many rosters in the NFL are, but that doesn't mean okay.
The Chiefs are. I think the Bengals are. I think the Ravens are.
The Bengals are far away.
The Ravens paid Odell Beckham Jr. $15 million.
We paid D-Hop 17, and look at where that got us. Nowhere. So just pay.
Because the Titans are not the Ravens.
But what I'm saying is you don't have to grossly overpay just so you can say, just to get some production or to win. You're not going to
grossly overpay for bad players. You're going to pay for good players.
I am not talking about even good players. I'm not grossly overpaying for good players. I am going to pay the market value for an individual. Outside of Chris Jones and Jefferson, who will not be a free agent. But outside of Chris Jones, I am not grossly overpaying for anybody. I'm assessing the market. I'm watching the market. I'm not saying that I'm not going to try to sign guys, once free agency hit the first couple of days. Yes, because I know if I don't offer contracts, then everybody's going to be gone. But I'm not going to sit here and pay $5 million over asking price just because somebody else wants him. No, it's like, I'm going to show you what we got. I'm going to show you what we're building here. Here's the contract. Yes, I'm going to have to pay you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But again, I am not going to grossly pay because I know that eventually I grossly overpay you. If it doesn't work out in the draft, now we're back to this cycle again. My main thing is the draft. I'm supplementing through free agency. And when I'm supplementing, I'm not trying to pay guys over what their play said they're truly worth. That I'm not doing because I always got the draft, and I expect these young guys to come in here and be ready to play.
And that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But you have too many holes to fill and not enough draft picks.
But you're not going to fill it with just one guy grossly overpaying them, are you?
I'm not saying you pay one guy. I'm saying you pay a lot of different guys because you have a lot of needs.
Teams don't. The last team that tried to do that, when they tried to pay a bunch of people. Now, not St. Louis, but L.A., they sort of got away with it because
they won a Super Bowl. They did get away with it.
But because they had core players. They had core players, guys they're going to be potentially Hall of Famers, and guys that they were one or two guys away from really getting over that hump. So they overpaid for the cornerback, Jalen Ramsey.
He was a really
good player. They overpaid for who else did they overpay
why is
for?
that
A receiver. Because they were only one or two guys away from winning a Super Bowl.
I don't think that's overpaying. If they helped you win a Super Bowl and they were a really good player,
but it's still overpaying.
They were on the verge of winning a Super Bowl. The Titans are not. The Titans, you just
they
read
were
the
close.
Power rankings last week. Carolina, they're 25th.
Because that's what the Rams needed. And you need a left tackle.
The Rams were a good
So it is not overpaying if that's what you need.
I'm not overpaying for a left tackle when I can go in the draft and give me a left tackle for the next 10 years that I'm underpaying.
The Rams
that's
were
fine.
awful. The Rams were awful for years. And as Derek mentioned, it took a few years with Jared Goff and the other guys to build up until they were on the verge of winning a Super Bowl, and then they went for it and traded for Jalen Ramsey and traded for Matthew Stafford and traded all their assets to win it. This Titans team is light years.
And they didn't grossly overpay for Matt Stafford either.
So how do you get from where you are to contending for a
Slowly.
Super Bowl?
Consistently building your roster.
Invest money. You pay players.
They're going to pay players, but again,
it's
value. It's about paying the right amount.
I'm not saying you pay backups in the NFL. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you invest in your team. We always talk about the Houston Texans, how the Titans could be the Texans, a really bad team that
Did they overpay?
They had the 5th highest payroll in the NFL this past year.
But did they who were
they
the main
bad
cogs?
For 3 years.
Exactly,
They were
but
bad
who were the
for
main
3
cogs
straight
of that?
years. They were awful. 3 straight years they were awful.
Titans have been pretty
didn't
awful
go
for
from
2
worst to
straight
first.
years. What? Titans don't have a piggy bank.
Right. They just closed the window on an era with the Tannehill, Vrabel, Derrick Henry era. That era was in the past. They are starting a new era, and so they have a lot of building to do. So I'm not
But
saying
how
don't
do you
spend the money at
build?
all. You spend it smart. You
Yes.
spend it smart.
Yeah, I'm not saying
I'm
don't
with-
spend the
I'm-
But
money.
you don't
I'm
go
not
in there
saying
saying,
spend
I
it
got to fill
dumb.
all the holes and be good next year. You're patient.
But I'm not going to sit here and I'm running the 400 meters because I'm going to tell you what happens when you run the 400 meters and you jump out there and you leading everybody by 20 meters. By the time your little tail gets to that 300 meters, everybody else is passing you up and everybody else is gone. And you end up being 7th or 8th. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. College, high school, it don't matter. You want to approach this. And I'm not saying, Caroline, don't spend the money that you have. I am not saying that. What I'm saying is I am not grossly overpaying for individuals out there on the market because there's only 2 guys in my mind. Now, other people may have more than that, but there's only 2 guys in my mind on the free agency market right now, and there's really only one because Jefferson's not. That's Chris Jones. That's the only guy that I'm grossly overpaying for. Nobody else. Not Kirk Cousins. As much as I love Kirk Cousins, I'm not grossly overpaying for him either. I will give you market value for your services. If you come to Nashville, what do Willie always say? Hey, listen, come to Nashville, those taxes you ain't going to be paying. You ain't going to be paying a lot of those taxes as if you go to New York or go to Georgia or
Good selling
somewhere
point.
else, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't have to grossly overpay if I approach it from that standpoint.
Well, I don't think that that can be the only selling point.
No, I know it can, but that was just one I threw
If
out
I
there,
can
yes.
get $10 million somewhere else and $2 million in Tennessee, but I don't have to pay taxes, like I'm going where I'm getting $10 million.
I get it.
Right, but there is a number that's real money that you can show somebody, and if their agent is smart, then that agent will not look at himself and say, well, look at you have to present that smartly if you're the Titans, and you can win that battle. I think that's been under big time, the no state income tax.
What I don't want to get misconstrued is the idea of, let's say, overpaying, like spending $20 million on Stephon Gilmore on a 1-year deal. Like, that is dumb. Like, that's what Super Bowl contending teams do. We're 1 player away. The Baltimore Ravens spending $15 million on Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not suggesting that. You overpay in free agency because that's the nature of free agency. I'll pick out one random player that I mentioned, Lloyd Cushenberry, a center for the Denver Broncos. If he does not get tagged and he hits free agency, that's a player that I'm willing to spend money on. Am I going to pay him $50 million a year? No, I'm not, because that's dumb. I'm going to spend money on a young center that can be my center for the next 5 years. Am I going to?
Makes perfect sense.
It makes sense. But what
That's my approach.
But you're not going to fill every hole.
But what does the
that you have on
market?
the team. But
What
you might
does the
have your
market
center.
say for when if he
I
does
don't know a
become a free
dollar
agency? I know that.
But I'm willing
saying,
to spend more money than any other team in the National Football League if I feel like that is my center for the next 5 to 10 years.
So if he becomes a free agent, and let's just throw a number out there, the market for this center is $8 million a year. Say it's $8 million a year. Are you gonna pay him 15?
If that's what I
Hell
have to,
no.
If that's what I have
Hell
to
no,
spend,
I'm not paying him
Why
15
not?
million. Because it doesn't make it. It doesn't
Right.
from a money standpoint. It doesn't make sense.
Why
Because
not?
now if he gets hurt or if it doesn't work out,
That's the same
now you're
thing.
on the hook.
Well, of course, if it doesn't work out, then you're on the hook. If
And
Pierce Ronke
center
doesn't work
is
out,
not
you're on the hook. If Will Levis doesn't work out, you're on the hook.
Center
That's
is not
football.
Center is not one of those positions that so I'm gonna be paying my center 15, and I just threw that number out there. But
Right.
I'm going to be paying my center $15 million if indeed that is the case. And then I'm paying my left tackle what?
As much
Right.
as I need.
That's the thing.
I
there
mean,
are other centers. You could find other centers.
You could probably find a really good center out there
That
that
was
you
an
don't have to pay.
example of a
this year.
player at a position
I know,
of need.
and I just threw a number out
Right.
there too. So,
But the point is that guy might be perfect, but you have to get him at the right price. Or
Exactly.
you move on. You see what you can get at the right price. If you make a habit of overpaying guys, it will burn you when it's time to be good. And Will Levis is
And then
third,
you end up with Andre
fourth
Dillard
year.
at left tackle.
You've got to be.
okay,
No, you don't.
if they end up
But
with they end up with a Dillard type of player, we're gonna be in this room and we're gonna be calling for Rand Carthon to get fired because we're gonna say damn it, he overpaid for that guy, and then we just
But
what do
if
we
it's a
do
good
then?
player, are we going to talk about that player being overpaid?
Oh yeah, if he doesn't work out, I'm still gonna say he's overpaid.
If he's a good player that works out, I will not complain about how much money that player is making. Now, that is the job of Rand Carthon, to pick the right players. I don't think Kansas City's complaining about how much money they're paying Patrick Mahomes. If it's
I don't
the right
think anybody.
player,
The quarterback is different. The quarterback is
it's an
outside of
example,
everybody else.
but yes, for sure, the quarterback is different. If it's the right player, and that's your player for the next 5 to 10 years, we're not talking about overpaying. That's why you pick the right players. You're not going to throw cash at just anybody. You pick the right players, and you pay your price. We'll continue the conversation coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Tomorrow it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. And if you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, then you'll win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45 a.m. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Stay tuned into 94.9 The Fan today as Vanderbilt baseball takes on Eastern Kentucky at Hawkins Field with the pregame at 4:15 p.m. and first pitch at 4:30. Coverage also available on 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. We're getting your thoughts on Titans free agency. What should the Titans' approach be? I know Chad Brinker said on the official Titans podcast, we want to be a team that drafts well and supplements in free agency, and I think that's the right approach. But your roster is just not in a position right now to build through the draft. You frankly don't have enough picks.
Well, they're going to have to, Caroline, build through the draft and supplement, as he said. I know it's hard. It may be harder to do because of where the roster is now, but that's why they got to find a way to message this, the right way, because it's going to take some years to build this roster back up, whether it be, overpaying, underpaying, drafting, whatever. It's going to take some years to build this roster back up.
Wes in Clarksville texts in, phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, do you take into account this year that you have to pay your quarterback in a few years? So wouldn't it be better to pay players now so you can afford to pay Levis if he turns out to be good? I don't disagree with the sentiment in the slightest, but I think the real question is, or the real point is, if Levis turns out to be good, you need to figure out if he is good.
Yeah.
And we don't know what he is right now because he doesn't have protection. He doesn't have enough weapons to throw to. You need to put him in a position where you can say, okay, now you are in a more opportune position for us to evaluate you. And if we put all these pieces around you and you're still not good enough, we got to find our next quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, however you choose to do it, you have time to do it because you're not paying the quarterback top-tier money. So however you choose to do it, then by all means do it. But again, I go back to, if you want sustainability, long-lasting sustainability, then it has to be through the draft. Yes, you're going to have to pay some players via free agency, but I am not going over and beyond for an individual not named Chris Jones. So because eventually we got to do this, and the teams that are consistently, in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, talks of the Super Bowl, they do it. That's the way they do it. They build through the draft, sign their own players, and supplement. And they may have to pay one individual.
Oh, you got to pay more than one.
But some teams
try
to really play one.
You identify. You identify the areas. Show me a team that year after year dumps a lot of money on the first day of free agency. I'll show you a struggling team. Case in point, just look at the New York Jets year after year. They have fallen into that trap so many times. So many times. It just doesn't. It's not the way to build a winner.
And I'm with you. And I'm not asking the Titans to overpay in free agency every single year because you're right, Willie. The Jets do dumb stuff. The Jets do some dumb things. I'm not asking you to overpay for mediocre players every single year, and every year is a go-for-it year. I'm saying this year, you have the resources.
Yeah.
Spend them. You don't have to put it in your savings account.
Hey, just because I got it don't mean I need to spend it all.
Why not?
Because it's the fact of, listen, there's not enough good players for me to spend it all. There's just not.
And you need more good players.
Yeah, you need more good players, but there's not enough good players of that caliber that I need to be spending all of my money to try to get those players. Again, and there's some good players in this year's free agency, and there will be more once guys start getting cut. But as it sits now,
but I don't want to build my roster with guys that weren't good enough anywhere else.
It's not about them being good enough anywhere else. It's about I was listening to Jared's show yesterday. It might have been Jared's show, and he was talking about why do players get released, and money, getting older, and he said something else. A lot of these there's a group of these guys that will be released come March, maybe even later in the year, close to June. D-Hop was one of those guys that got released a little bit later. There's going to be guys that get released, not because they can't play, but because teams are not willing to pay them the money. So You got free agency, you got the draft, and then you got the back end of free agency. And the back end of free agency doesn't mean these are bad players. It just means that now teams look at their salary cap or whatever, and they deem like, man, I wish we could keep you, but unfortunately, we got to move on from you. And they're still good players that can play good football for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Totally. And I think D-Hop is the perfect example of that. I can't go into the draft hoping and praying that the second wave of free agency is going to give me the extra pieces that I need. If you get good players, great. But
Caroline is clearly scarred from the Dillard experience. And I don't blame you.
is anyone not?
I don't blame you. I get it.
Ask Will Levis how he feels about the Andre Dillard experience.
Right. But it doesn't mean that philosophy doesn't ever work. Right? It does work a lot of times, and that's a lot of times how you build a good roster. You find the right guy at the right price.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. All right, coming up next, speaking of Will Levis, some shade thrown at Will Levis, and we will discuss coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063 The Game. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and The Game Nashville app. We are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Caroline Fenton, D-Mase from our Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game studios, and Willy Donick joins us from L.A. The Predators taking on the Kings tomorrow night. Want to get into some Preds thoughts, but first, we have to address some Will Levis slander.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know if you guys saw this. This came out late last night on FanDuel's Twitter account. It was a way too early 2024 quarterback rankings. And so, the first few quarterbacks, it was the same quarterbacks that we see. Patrick Mahomes, number 1, zero issue with that. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. If you want to argue that Burrow should be 3, Lamar Jackson 2, whatever, yes, fine. But I think that all of us would say, overwhelmingly, that those are the 4 quarterbacks that are the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. C.J. Stroud at 5, Matthew Stafford 6. Will Levis. I'm going to take a guess at where Levis was.
32 teams. Gosh. I think he should be, I don't know, somewhere around 17 maybe, 18, somewhere around there.
I was thinking the same thing, D-Mase. I would have him at the very bottom of the second tier, the second third, rather. Let's break it up into thirds, right? He's not top 10.
No.
He is not at the top of the next 10, but he could be at the bottom of the next 10. Like you said, 17, 18, that might be on the high side. And on the low side, I'd say he's top of the bottom third, which would put him in the low 20s, 21, 22. That's where I would have him. Sometimes 17 and 22, somewhere in there.
If I was making a list, I would think 20 to 25.
Okay.
This list, 32.
Oh, man, it's only 32 starting quarterbacks, right?
What's the explanation on that?
There is none. Because
they don't even have an explanation?
Oh, no, of course not. No. It's just a graphic. Because why have an explanation when you can just throw something at the wall and get everyone to argue in the comments? So Will Levis is ranked as the 32nd quarterback in this FanDuel way too early quarterback rankings, below J.J. McCarthy at 31. J.J. McCarthy might be saying, I've never heard that name before. That's correct, because he's not even in the league.
He's not even drafted
yet.
He
hasn't even been drafted.
So don't tell me Caleb Williams and these other guys.
Oh, yeah.
May
And
Daniels.
Caleb Williams is number 12.
You guys to be freaking kidding me.
Jaden Daniels at 23.
Uh-huh.
Michael Penix Jr. at 27. So Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Bryce Young, and Will Levis are all ranked below Jaden Daniels, who hasn't even been drafted.
Yeah, they must have been eating some bad, horrible ramen noodles or something. A bad steak that night when they put together this list. They had something bad happen to them, eating-wise, when they put together that list, because that's just, it's a horrendous list outside of, obviously, possibly the top 10. But what does it do? It gets people to click on, and it gets people to talk about it. I don't see Will Levis as a 30.
We just took the bait.
Exactly. We took it. Hey, I saw the bait. I saw the hook. I saw everything. I knew what was going to happen, and I still bit it. So let's go. But, I can't see. I am not going to put a guy, regardless of what he has done in college football, because I've seen the other side of it. Great college quarterbacks get in the NFL, and they can't even be third stringers. I'm not putting an individual that has not taken a snap in the NFL, hadn't even touched a NFL field. I'm not putting him in front of Will Levis. I'm just not. That is, I don't know whether that's disrespect or, you disrespect those players that you're putting in front of them, meaning college players. You just respect them that much. And they had one of them in the top 15, right?
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it's just like, how?
Above Aaron Rodgers.
How? I don't get it. I don't get it. That's just me. I'm a guy with, hey, you got to prove it before I start putting you on a list, period.
That's everyone.
Exactly.
It is a ridiculous sentiment, an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, well, Will Levis is not as good of an NFL quarterback as 4 to 5 players that haven't even played a down in the NFL. And I understand, hey, we take the bait, so on and so forth. But Titans fans see this. And I do wonder, like, is this how people view Will Levis?
Man,
I do think it's fair to assess. The only thing I get out of that, because it's a lot of nonsense, but it's fair to say that the jury is out big time on Will Levis. And I think the further out you go, the more skepticism you see. I think there's more optimism the closer you are to Nashville.
yeah, but I mean, if you've spent any time watching Will Levis's 8 starts, I think it was somewhere around there, you will see that one, he's not the 32nd best quarterback, or however you want to, phrase it, in the National Football League. He has tools. He has the things that you cannot coach, but he also needs to get better at the things you can coach. But I've seen enough in him, in those 8 games to know that he's not the 32nd best quarterback in the National Football League. He's just not. So now what happens this year, that's a different story. You hope that he build on what he did last year and correct some of the mistakes that he had, his rookie season. And I'm going to lean on the side of you're going to see a much better quarterback this year than what you saw in the 9 games that he started. I think the offensive line would be better. He may have a couple more skill guys to throw to. And then the system, I think the system's going to fit him a little bit better. He's a big arm guy. He likes pushing the ball down the field. He can make every throw on the field. So you use that to your advantage. Make the defense cover 52 yards wide and 120 yards long.
So, and I'm with you that, hey, I'm excited to see what Will Levis can do, and let's see. But, I look at it like, is this the perception of your quarterback? Like, are we just total Titan Bobos? Like, are we looking at this through two-tone blue-tinted glasses? So let's see. Let's do our own list. I'll critique the list, but I'll do our own list. Let's just go ahead and say Will Levis is not better than Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, C.J. Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins. Is that fair?
That's 15 guys you've named off 17?
About. It's fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say.
So let's look at the quarterbacks ranked above Will Levis. Will Levis or Kyler Murray? Who would you rather have?
I'm taking Will Levis. Even though I do like Kyler Murray, Will Levis is a bigger, stronger, more stout quarterback.
Willie?
I think you got to take Kyler Murray. I mean, come on. He's done a lot more in the league.
Get it. Yeah.
I would take Levis. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan. So we'll say majority rules there, Levis over Murray. If you have to have a video game clause in your contract, get out of here. Okay, Levis.
Right. It's unfulfilled potential. You hope that you're not saying these things about Levis in a couple years, right? Because Murray has disappointed. But Murray has done a lot more than Levis has at this point. So I can see why somebody would rank him higher if we're just doing a power ranking, right?
I'm trying to look at it like if you could pick, you are the CEO of the Fighting
buy
Billy
stock in
Donics.
somebody.
Who is your quarterback tomorrow? I would take I would take Will Levis over Kyler Murray.
Right. You'll take the unknown and the potential rather than the known.
Tua or Will Levis?
Boy, that's a tough one. Again, I'm looking future. I'm not looking now. And the way the NFL is, I'm taking Will Levis. And again, I think Tua's a damn good quarterback. But I'm taking Will Levis because of the attributes.
Willie?
I got to stay with the same philosophy. It's not even close. It's you have to rank Tua higher.
I get it. There's no pushback on me with that one. I mean, but I'm looking at it from. I guess I'm just looking at it from a different perspective.
I think I have to go Tua too, and I really don't feel great about it. It's not like, oh my gosh, Tua, of course, Tua. Because I have some questions about Tua. I lean Tua, but it is very, very close. Justin Fields or Will Levis.
I feel like we're playing Let's Make a Deal, and you have the sitting, somewhat finished product, right? Murray and Tua, there's still a lot more chapters to be written. They're still young, but you've seen what's developed. And then you've got this Will Levis, which is like the box. That it's the black box where the guy says, do you want to take what you see in front of you, or do you want to open the box, which we don't know what's in there? Right? That's kind of where we are on this.
Don't overthink it.
Justin and Will, I'm taking Justin quickly for this reason. Just like Will Levis, I can mold him into and they're so young. But I look at Justin Fields he's something different. And he can make all the throws that Will can. But I can use him other ways as well. And again, I go back to and that's why I'm picking Will Levis with the other two, because I get to mold them into hopefully the quarterback I want them to be. I know what Tua is, and I know what Kyler Murray is. They're good quarterbacks, but I get to take this big frame quarterback with a massive arm and mold him into the quarterback that I hopefully want him to be. But I'm taking Justin Fields.
I think I would take Will Levis. Anthony Richardson, Levis.
Woo! I'm taking Richardson.
I am too.
I'm taking Richardson.
Willie?
I would take Richardson and Fields at this point.
Okay.
I mean, look, this doesn't mean I don't think Levis is any good. I think it's just where you would rank them right now.
Just an exercise.
Yeah.
Just an exercise. Baker Mayfield, Will Levis.
I love me some Baker. Y'all know that. That's my guy. Is this something? Baker Mayfield is like, for me, I just always want him to win. I don't know why.
You don't want Will Levis to win,
I want
D-Mase?
Will Levis to win, but I'm just saying win at life. I want Will Levis to win at life too. But Baker he has that one thing that I think Will does have, but it needs to come out a little bit more, that dog in him, that leadership. I got to go with my man Baker Mayfield. I like Baker Mayfield. To me is like a McMahon. You remember Jim McMahon back in the day, Willie?
Sure.
He had that
yeah.
fiery attitude, and he can just, like, you wanted him in your foxhole. I want
Right.
Baker Mayfield in my foxhole. Not that I don't want Will, but I want Baker.
If Mayfield had a defense like the Bears had, it would probably make Baker Mayfield a lot more like Jim McMahon.
Exactly.
But, like, okay, let's put it this way for this exercise. If Will Levis turns into Baker Mayfield, are you disappointed, or are you like, okay,
No, I'm not disappointed.
got a pretty good quarterback?
I think you have a pretty good quarterback.
That's really the question.
I think you have a pretty good quarterback if he
Is that a
turned into
realistic
Baker
ceiling?
Mayfield. Yeah,
You're hoping you have
it is.
something. Everybody hopes you have something special in Levis, but if he turns into Baker Mayfield, what would your reaction be?
That's a
The
good
Baker
question.
Mayfield now today, then I would be okay with that. But I know what I got to do around him.
That's a good question.
And
I think I would
is
live with
Baker
it.
Mayfield learning from all the trials and tribulations he's been through and all the addresses he stopped at? And is he going to be one of those late bloomers that turns into Jim Plunkett or Rich Gannon? I mean, there's still chapters to be written for him.
Can Baker Mayfield win you a Super Bowl?
Alone?
Can you win a Super Bowl with
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield as
Yeah,
your
you can.
quarterback?
You
Then I
can.
can live with that.
Yeah.
I would take Levis over Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
This is a tricky one. Deshaun or Will Levis? I'm going to take Will Levis.
Yeah. Deshaun,
With the price tag?
Yeah. But
and the
even if it
baggage,
wasn't the
give me
price
Levis.
tag with Deshaun Watson, there's just something about his play that I'm not too excited about. I can't pinpoint it, but he's a good quarterback. I just don't think at this stage of his career, and I have a Will Levis, I'm taking Will Levis because he's shown in Cleveland that unless he shows something different this year, but he's shown in Cleveland like they won more games with Joe Flacco, and they were a better team with Joe Flacco. And I know the playoffs was different, but they were a better team with Joe Flacco than they were with Deshaun Watson.
I didn't watch a ton of Browns games, but I did watch the Titans play the Browns, and I did watch Deshaun Watson's best offense be Christian Fulton PI penalties. So I'm going to take Baker Mayfield over Deshaun Watson.
Will Levis over Deshaun Watson.
Thank you. Yes, Will Levis. Thank you. Daniel Jones.
Will Levis.
Will Levis.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's,
Are you
that's
wooing Will? I mean, Willie?
Willie.
Daniel Jones has one really good year under his belt. He's his team crumbled around him.
He crumbled
this year.
too. He got hurt.
Yeah, I think I got to take the box and take Levis. I'll open up the box. I've seen, I could peek inside the box when we've seen Levis in those 8 starts or whatever, so it's not like I have no idea what's in the box, right? You have a little glimpse of what's in there. And, boy, I hope it's better than Daniel Jones.
Well,
But
you better hope.
Daniel Jones has not done nothing, right?
No, you're right. He has done something.
Good work.
Yeah.
They
Daniel.
signed him to a second contract, so that tells you that he's done something in the league. That's a victory.
Yeah.
That means it's
Hasn't
not a
done
bust.
nothing is, I think, a good evaluation of Daniel Jones. Not glowing.
He earned the second contract. That's huge. Marcus Mariota did not earn the second contract from the Titans.
Yeah.
Levis or
There's
Russell
plenty
Wilson?
that crash and burn.
Ooh, Levis or Russell Wilson. Okay, I like the Russell Wilson that I saw this past season. I do. I think.
You did?
Yeah. Because
For the price?
If you
Why?
no, not for the price. The price, I know, was too much. But if you look at his numbers, and I think what people were doing was they looked at his numbers, not this past season, but the season before, where he was just horrid. And they had already made their minds up about Russell Wilson. Hell, I had already made my mind up about Russell Wilson. But then I got a chance to see him a few times. I looked at the numbers. I'm like, he's a much better quarterback. Why? Because I think, Sean Payton sort of brought everything in for him. Mm-hmm. He compacted everything. He didn't give him a lot of things to do. He compacted everything, which made him a much better quarterback. Look at the numbers and look at what he was able to do this past season. He had some bad games, but I think he was a much better quarterback under Sean Payton this year than he was last year. Man, but I'm still, because I'm looking at it from an age standpoint and all that stuff, I'm still taking Will Levis. I am.
Willie?
I think at this point in Russell Wilson's career, I'm taking the unknown of Levis.
It's Levis. It is so Levis. Russell Wilson. Oh, that cheese ball.
Because
Levis.
you have to take the price tag, right? You can't ignore the price tag.
No, I get it.
It's not even close to the same.
Derek Carr or Will Levis?
Interesting one.
I'm taking Will Levis. Derek Carr's, he's a good quarterback, but I think he's reached his ceiling. I think he is who he is. And even if you surround him with really good players, I still don't think he can get you where you need to go. I'm taking Will Levis.
I would propose the Mayfield question again, and that is, if Will Levis turned in to Derek Carr, would you be disappointed?
I would want more.
Yes.
Yeah, I would want more.
So you like what Mayfield's done for his career more than Carr?
Yeah, because Mayfield to me has something that Carr. It's just like he has that intangible that I don't think, and maybe because I hadn't watched Carr a lot, but when you look at Mayfield and you watch him play, you see it. It doesn't always equate to win, but you see that something in him. I don't see that in Derek Carr. Like, if I had 2 minutes to go or 1 minute and 50 seconds to go, I'm taking Baker Mayfield. If I had 45 seconds to go, I'm taking Baker Mayfield over Derek Carr.
Okay. So, and you see a little bit of that in Levis.
Exactly.
I got that. Yeah.
I'm taking Levis. I think, Derek Carr, I don't think is a bad quarterback. But give me Levis. I mean, Derek Carr was so underwhelming in New Orleans this past year. Will Levis or Bryce Young?
Can I pass on that? I want to pass on that.
The answer is supposed to be Bryce Young, right? He was the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, and I love Bryce Young, but that small, I don't know. Maybe this past year in Carolina has totally tainted it for me, and I can't see past what happened this year. I'm taking Bryce. I'm taking Bryce Young.
Just the fact that we have to pause about it says something for Will Levis.
Yeah, it does.
After 1 year in the league for both, I mean, it's equal, right? They were both put in tough spots, and Bryce didn't do a whole lot.
And I think that's what this
Will
whole
Levis
exercise
flashed some
shows.
really good. Were the highs of Will Levis higher than the highs of Bryce Young? I think you could say yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what this entire exercise shows, Willie. The fact that all of these quarterbacks have given us pause, except Deshaun Watson. That, you look at Tua and Justin Fields and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, who won a Super Bowl, and we chose Will Levis. We would have, if we had to pick a quarterback for our team tomorrow, we would choose Will Levis. I think that shows, one, just how stupid this list is, and two, when you when you really break it down and think about it, not just, Will Levis is the 22nd best quarterback in the National Football League. When you really break it down and compare Will Levis to other quarterbacks in the league, there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot of potential there. So no, I don't think we're a bunch of Titans bobos.
No.
And I don't think we're looking at it through two-tone blue tinted glasses. Does Will Levis have a lot more to show? Abso-freaking-lutely. Do the Titans have a lot to do with that? Yes, they do, because they need to put more pieces around him. Is Will Levis going to turn into a Super Bowl MVP? I don't know. You hope. Could he crash and burn? I mean, maybe. All of that's on the table. I think it goes to show, whatever people outside of Nashville might think about Will Levis, if they think he's the 32nd best quarterback in the league, they're wrong. They're wrong.
Yep. He's not Achilles Smith.
Definitely
exactly.
not.
Right.
I'll say this about Derek Carr. He is a magnet for interceptions. So
Yeah.
just to help Caroline's viewpoint on Derek Carr, I will say he is a magnet towards interceptions.
He's a red zone zombie.
Yes.
Is what he is. All right, we'll get into your thoughts on this coming up next. Your calls, your texts, everything is on the table. Mace, we are brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
Happy Wednesday out there, everybody. Listen, there are sports games still happening, whether it be the NBA, NHL, MLB, soccer. And if you want to make bets, which I know you want to do, then do it with our partners Zen Sports, as I know you are already. And I need to tell you, and I'm excited to tell you about their promotion, their introductory promotion available to all new customers here in Tennessee. It's the No Danger First Wager. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000 No Danger First Wager. When you place your first bet on Zen Sports, you will be reimbursed for the amount of your bet if it loses up to $1,000. Plus, Zen Sports has launched their VIP program for the premier bettors of Tennessee. If you think you might qualify, then listen up. The VIP program is by invite only, so if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, please check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. No other, and I mean no other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and bigger and better action than Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for, bettors? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase for broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. We're breaking down this truly brutal quarterback rankings from FanDuel. Has Will Levis ranked as the 32nd quarterback in the NFL. For those who are counting, that's last. Yeah. That is the worst quarterback in the NFL. Behind quarterbacks who haven't even been drafted yet.
So
Caleb
he's
Williams,
behind.
Jayden Daniels.
He's behind Sam Howell too.
This list does not have Sam Howell. It has Drake May as the Commanders quarterback, which is even worse.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Sam Howell. Good grief, you're not even on the list.
Exactly. Sam's not even on the list, and he put up good numbers this year. I mean, they didn't win, but his numbers were good.
So I guess does this indicate that Will Levis is better than Sam Howell?
I guess so.
Thank you for that bone that you've thrown, Will Levis.
And Desmond Ritter for that factor, right? He's not on that list.
Desmond Ritter is not on the list.
Yeah, I would definitely take Will Levis over Desmond Ritter.
J.J. McCarthy is the Falcons quarterback in this list.
I would take Will Levis in college over J.J. McCarthy.
Easy. And J.J. McCarthy won a national championship.
Exactly.
So, and we went through the exercise. You know, Brock Purdy is listed at 32 behind Deshaun Watson, who we unanimously said, give me Will Levis over Deshaun Watson. Daniel Jones, give me Will Levis over Daniel Jones. Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, all quarterbacks ranked above Will Levis, and all quarterbacks that we said, no, we're good. We'll take Will Levis instead. Want to get your thoughts on that? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Anything is on the table. We'll talk quarterbacks, this list, Will Levis, Titans free agency. One texter texts into the text line. And I don't know if I said our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, but they are. One texter says, Will Levis isn't Aaron Rodgers, but he could become Matthew Stafford. And that dude just won the Super Bowl.
We just was talking about that during the break.
Exactly what we said at the break. Willie, I want your thoughts on this. I said, could Matthew Stafford be Will Levis's ceiling?
I'd love that.
Is that a fair thing to say? Because I think I would take that.
Absolutely.
Is that fair? Is that giving Will Levis too much credit? Is that putting too low of a ceiling on Will Levis?
It's not too low. I would take that in a heartbeat. Stafford, I'm just trying to think of the long arc. Remember, he was the first pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. Levis was picked in the second round. I do think there's a difference there. And Stafford was back in the day that when you spent number one overall on a quarterback, it cost you a ton of money before you ever took a snap. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag for Detroit, and they never really did get the pieces around him right to win. So that's a really interesting name to look to throw out there. But Matthew Stafford is kind of, on the fringe of a Hall of Fame career. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but I think, I would sign up for that career arch without hesitation.
I would too.
Yeah.
And I think that it's something that's not completely out of the cards.
No.
Like, if Will Levis became Baker Mayfield, live with that.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally.
Could live with that, yeah.
I could take that. I would take
do
that.
a lot worse. I mean, you could go down the list. Ryan Leaf. I meant we could go every 5 minutes. You can name a guy that just never did anything, who was drafted a lot higher than Will Levis.
Yeah, and that was interesting. Field Yates sat down with Jared at the Super Bowl, and he talked about how the view of Will Levis as a second-round quarterback is completely different than a first. And
yes,
that does
I agree with that.
Feel obvious, but his point was the Titans can stomach moving on from a Will Levis if he doesn't work out a lot easier than you can stomach drafting Will Levis at third overall. And I think that's true.
I mean, where you get drafted.
Or 11th overall.
Yeah. Where you get drafted,
right, yeah.
sort of, whether it be fair or unfair, it does sort of, I'm not going to say taint the perception, but it does sort of, cloud the perception of who you are as a player. If you don't, if you're the number one pick and you have just a good career, people are looking at you like, man, you're borderline bust because you're the number one pick in the draft. And I think that would have been Matthew Stafford's, the tag on him had he not won a Super Bowl, that you're the number one pick in the draft and you got your first team to only one playoffs, and then you went to your next team that was stacked and you couldn't win the Super Bowl, so you will always be considered really good.
Another texter texts in with a name that was not on the list, but I think is a very fair question. Will Levis or Kenny Pickett? I say Levis.
I say Levis too. No, I've seen enough of Kenny Pickett. Hell, he might not be the quarterback next year for Pittsburgh.
I don't
This
think
upcoming
Pittsburgh
season.
wants him.
Again, let's shift the perspective a little bit. If this question were thrown out there last year, when Kenny Pickett had the good finish to the rookie season, the momentum was going. Not everybody. A lot of people, it was kind of a sneaky pick for the Steelers. I believe somebody that's a host on our station had the Steelers in the Super Bowl, I believe, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe that's
Is that
correct.
Caroline?
I believe that
can
is
you
correct.
Clarify that? So some people thought pretty highly of Kenny Pickett going into the season. So it just shows you your stock can rise and fall a lot.
Quickly.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens with Will Levis. He has some good times and bad times.
Another texter texts in and says, if Levis is so bad, then why did Callahan take the Titans' job? Levis outplayed Young by a long way, and they have Young rated above Levis? No way. Now, the Bryce Young hill is not one that I'm willing to die on. The J.J. McCarthy ranked above Will Levis, that's maybe more a hill I'm willing to die on. But it is real. It's a real thing. Mm-hmm. The national perception or the outside of Nashville perception. Like, I was doing a show yesterday with somebody that's in Charlotte and someone in D.C., so outside of the Nashville market. And one asked me, what's the big topic of conversation right now in Nashville? I said, we're talking about the draft, talking about, putting pieces around Will Levis, building up the offensive line, adding another receiver. And they said, oh, really, building around Levis? So they're gonna run it back with Levis? They believe in Levis? I thought, well, yes!
It's like...
what am I missing here? But that is the sentiment.
I think if you haven't watched Will Levis play, I think you always defer to his senior year in Kentucky, the whole debacle with the draft and all this other stuff, and you sort of lean more so on that than actually watching him play this season. Like he did a good job. Does he need to get better? Absolutely. Did he make his mistakes? Absolutely. But I think the position that he was in, with everything around him or lack of things around him, he played good enough for the Titans to look at him and say, okay, let's do some things around the quarterback. Let's add some pieces around the quarterback. So now we can see if he can now make that next jump that we need him to make.
Another texter texts in and says, Willy and D-Mase said that the Titans, talking about free agency, Willy and D-Mase said the Titans are not one player away, but D-Mase also said he's only overpaying for a Chris Jones type. If you wait for that in free agency, you're going to end up only signing one guy anyway. Go give starters a little bit more than market value, like Cushenberry, because if you don't, then what are you going to do? Sign another guy and end up like Andre Dillard? And we'll be in this situation again next year. This year is different because you only have 3 picks and a bunch of money.
People, we have to get away from the Dillard thing. We have to. We've exhausted, just like we had to get away from the A.J. Brown trade. We got to get away from it. Every team in the National Football League makes a mistake at a position. Either they overvalue it, they overpay, or they over-evaluate that player before bringing him in, and then he turns out to not be the player they thought he was, or they're paying him more money than what they should have paid him. Look at the people that they did sign. That did a fairly good job. They may not have been all pros or Pro Bowlers, but guys like Aziz did a good job. Your leading tackler. Now, is he the linebacker of the future? Probably not, because you need a more versatile linebacker. Sean Budding, he did a good job. Was it a great job? No, he did a good job. So you can't keep on going back to that, look at Dillard. If you keep on, you're pointing at one guy, the Dillard. Every team in the National Football League has that one guy that they just can't explain it. Like, he just didn't work out. Now let's move on.
Does everyone have their own Dillard?
I think everybody has.
It was that. I think that
every team has their Dillard.
This is the example because it was so bad.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we can't let that fear of a Dillard persuade us from not, going back and addressing that sort of position or wanting to pay a guy because we missed on Dillard. There were a lot of other guys that the Titans or any other team out there missed on. And then, frankly, they had to redo it again. That's the world of sports. Mm-hmm. We're going to hit on some, we're going to miss some. We hope we hit more than miss. But they had guys that they brought on their team this season that were guys that contribute, guys that played good football. They were not all pros, nor were they Pro Bowlers. But if you watch them play, if you understand the game, they play good football. That's all we're asking. If we're paying you that much money, we're asking you to at least give us good football. And outside of Dillard, and maybe one other, who didn't play good football? Arden Key is a guy that I'm sort of like, that may be another one that he didn't play good, but he did have moments. Even Arden Key had moments.
D-Hop was the only one that was a difference maker.
D-Hop excelled, and we knew he was going to excel coming in. But I think when, the offensive linemen outside of Dillard that they signed this past year, they came in and did a good job. Again, were they all pros, Pro Bowlers? No, they were not. But they came in and did a good job. The secondary guys, Bunting, he did a good job. Was he an all-pro, Pro Bowler? No. Aziz, he did a good job. Was he an all-pro, Pro Bowler? No. We can't just lump them in there with Dillard because they were not all pros or Pro Bowlers.
I think more of the sentiment is – go ahead, Willy.
Well, the key is you got to have guys that you draft and develop that are your studs to where they are making Aziz Al-Shire better. They're making Sean Michael Bunting better. They're taking solid average players and making them better because they're buoyed by your studs that you draft and develop. And that is part of the reason why they underwhelmed, because the star players on the Titans they don't have enough. They didn't have enough last year. Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry could no longer elevate them the way he once did. They didn't get a great year from, Jeffrey Simmons, and they just didn't have enough great players at the top of the roster. If you have a better top of your roster, the middle part of your roster, those guys look a lot better, I think.
Totally. And I think the sentiment is, to take the Dillard example out of it. It's just the example of you get what you pay for in this league. And if you go out and you sign a guy who was cut on another roster, wasn't good enough to start on another roster, and you hope that you can do something with him, that you can pay below market value for a left tackle and hope that below market left tackle, backup left tackle, can be your starting left tackle, that's going to burn you. So it's the sentiment of if you go out and get a bargain and hope that they can be more than what they are, that's a losing formula.
I think if they would have had a more experienced and seasoned offensive line coach, then they would have never reached for Dillard. I think had they had a Mike Munchak or Bill Callahan, I'm not sure they would have reached for Dillard.
I don't think that they could have coached Dillard up. I think you're right. I don't think they would have gotten Dillard in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think they would have reached for him and pay, especially not paying him the money that he ended up getting.
I think a Bill Callahan would say, look, if Jeff Stoutland can't work with him, I can't work with him either.
Not much I can do.
I'm good. And 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, one thing that Barry Trotz mentioned on Jared's show yesterday as it pertained to the trade deadline, and I was floored. Maybe there's not as much interest in UC Saros as I expected. We'll get into that coming up next. Tune into 102.5 The Game tonight as Vanderbilt men's basketball takes on Georgia at home. Pre-game at 7 p.m., tip-off at 7:30, with coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com.
How much of the phone calls, maybe a percentage, what percentage of the phone calls you're taking right now or making have to do with the goalie, and how much of it has to do with other parts of the roster?
Percentage, I would probably other parts of the roster is probably 90%.
Mm-hmm. Which would leave 10% for Saros?
Yeah, that's probably as accurate as I can be with you right now.
Good quick math there from Jared. 90 plus 10 is 100.
Yeah.
That was Barry Trotz on Jared's show earlier this week. Barry says 90% of the calls that he's gotten from other GMs across the league are about everyone else except UC Saros. Willie, does that number surprise you?
No, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. Number one, there are a lot of other pieces that are sort of in play for Barry Trotz, and we mentioned them. Just go down the list. Go to capfriendly.com and look at the red rectangle next to the names of the players that are free agents at the end of the year or restricted free agents, right? So, Lankinen, Carrier, Trennan, Novak. I'm probably leaving out 1 or 2, but those guys get a lot of phone calls, I think. And Barry Trotz is calling other people about some of these guys and he's including their agents, because he's trying to figure out what would it take to re-sign them. How is their stock rising and falling right now? What do we want to do? Like that takes up a lot of your time, and it doesn't take as much to make a deal on those guys. For UC Saros, I think it's 10% because it takes such a big time offer to even have you make the phone call, right? Let's take one that you sent my way, Caroline, this morning.
Yeah.
And that was out of Sportsnet, and I see a lot of variations of this package, right? It's no secret that the Devils are looking for a goalie. There's a lot of heavy talks between the Devils and the Flames about their goalie, Jacob Markstrom, who is in a different contractual situation than Saros is. But they put together a high-level prospect, Seamus Casey, who's at Michigan right now, and a really good player, but unknown. He was a second-round pick. He is one of their top prospects. Dawson Mercer, former first-round pick, having a really good year. He's had a 27-goal season. Pretty good. Established player. A first-round pick. But in this proposal, you would also be giving them Carrier in that as well. And I'm just going to assume that Tom Fitzgerald has already made a phone call or more than a phone call with some kind of package that gets into that stratosphere.
Yeah.
And Barry Trotz has said, no, that's not enough. So that's going to keep a lot of other GMs from even making the call. That's a pretty decent package they put together. But I kind of look at that and I say, well, especially if you're throwing in Carrier, it's not enough for a guy like Saros. I'd rather keep Saros.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking more so along that line, Willie, too, that the 10% is not it's more so of what do I have to give up to get this guy? And not only give up, then I got to turn back around and pay him, So that may, lessen the phone calls you get about that particular player. Because, I think everybody in the league, around the league, knows in the ballpark of what it's going to take to pry UC Saros away from the Nashville Predators. So if you already know, it's like I'm not going to even, unless I'm willing to do that, why even venture down that road?
I totally understand that perspective, but also if I'm a GM in the league that's contending for a cup and I need a goaltender, I'm picking up the phone regardless. That doesn't mean that I have to make the trade today, but you want to say it's going to take a haul? Okay, what is that haul exactly? Because if you're only saying that 10% of your phone calls are about the goalie, does the price go down? Something to think about. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Stillman & Company is up next.
Be love and love on your people. Peace.